Senate negotiators have finally released the text of a bill that would provide aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan in exchange for overhauling the nation's immigration system. After weeks of closed-door meetings, rumors, and promises, they finally released a $118 billion plan to deal with several national security priorities. It includes $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion for Israel, nearly $5 billion for Taiwan and other Indo-Pacific nations, and $20 billion for changes to the U.S. immigration system. Those changes include requiring the government to shut down the border if the Border Patrol encounters 5,000 migrants or more on average over 7 days. But the bill's future, uncertain. House Speaker Mike Johnson tweeted last night that the bill was worse than expected and that it would be dead on arrival in the House. Here's how Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford, one of the bill's negotiators, responded to Johnson's tweet.
I'm a little confused how it's worse than expected when it builds border wall, expands deportation flights, expands ICE officers, Border Patrol officers, detention beds, how it creates a faster process for deportation.
President Biden came out in support of the legislation, saying it will make our country safer and our border more secure. But just this morning, Donald Trump slammed it again in a post on his social media site saying, quote, "This bill is a gift to the Democrats and a death wish for the Republican Party." With us now to take a closer look at this, NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor, NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julie Ainsley, and NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky in Eagle Pass, Texas. So, Sahil, you've got Republicans and some Democrats coming out against this bill. What are some of the provisions that have each side opposing it?
That's right, Jose. The fate of this bill is very much uncertain at this moment. Let's start with the fact that this would be the most conservative border security and asylum overhaul bill in decades if it were to pass. $118 billion, including the immigration provisions and the various security supplemental and foreign aid measures. 370 pages. Republicans have split immediately and sharply over this piece of legislation. Senator James Lankford, the lead Republican negotiator, making the hard sell for it, saying this would be a huge victory for conservatives. He's backed by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has also helped craft this bill and is very much in support of it. Steve Daines, the National Republican Senate Committee chairman, has immediately come out against this bill. Let's show his tweet on the screen. He says, quote, "I can't support a bill that doesn't secure the border, provides taxpayer-funded lawyers to illegal immigrants, and gives billions to radical and open borders groups. I'm a no." This is a significant piece of opposition from Republicans as more and more Republican senators are coming out against this, while Trump is trashing this. Remember, Donald Trump wants to use this chaos at the border as a political issue against President Biden in the 2024 election. It might be his best weapon, especially with the economy improving. And a lot of Republicans here on Capitol Hill do want to do Donald Trump's bidding on this. It's unclear whether this can get the 60 votes to pass the Senate, but Democrats are mostly in support of it. Not all of them. It's likely to lose some Democrats in the progressive and Hispanic caucus space. Senator Alex Padilla in California has suggested he opposes it. He argues that it would dismantle the asylum system. Senator Bob Menendez, New Jersey, says it's a betrayal to Latino and immigrant communities. One thing Republicans have latched onto, Jose, is this claim that 5,000 immigrants would be welcome per day. That's a false claim. What this bill does is has an emergency trigger that forces the president to shut down the border if the weekly average of migrants seeking asylum between ports of entry hits 5,000. It does not welcome that many people. It includes lots of other choke points to prevent that, and it does raise the so-called credible fear bar. Now, Democrats, for the most part, are expected to be on board with this bill, and Senator Chris Murphy, the lead negotiator in his party, made his case earlier on Morning Joe. Let's play what he said.
I just believe that there are enough Republicans in the Senate who are sincere about solving the problem, as opposed to those who want chaos at the border because Donald Trump thinks it's a good election issue, that we can get this passed. But we'll see. We'll have a vote in the next 2 to 3 days to get onto the bill, and that will tell us whether we still have the support we need or whether Donald Trump has prevailed here.
And the Senate is expected to start voting on this procedurally this Wednesday, Jose.
Yeah, Julia, I mean, there are so many aspects to this 300-plus page bill, and it's in many ways different from the 2013 Gang of Eight bill that passed in the Senate and went nowhere in the House. What are your thoughts on the specific border/asylum issues of this bill? There are some substantial changes in U.S. asylum law if this bill does go through.
That's right, Jose. I mean, as Sahil said, this is really the most conservative immigration bill we've seen in decades. And there's some really radical departures from the norm. Just to spell that out for you, right now, when migrants cross the border, they're apprehended, they're processed, and if they're not deemed a national security threat, they're released with a court date that can be years into the future. Now, or under this new bill, what they would start doing is they wouldn't even have to wait to see a judge. DHS could have their own asylum officers screen them, and then within 6 months, if they're found not to have a claim, they're automatically deported. They could also detain all those who are going to see a judge and expedite their removal. Those are the two new pathways that this bill gives them. And it's something that hasn't been discussed as much because it was really something new a lot of us saw last night or learned about last night in the border bill. It wasn't one of those details that was leaking like the trigger that would shut down the border. So that's another thing to keep in mind when we're hearing Republicans talk about welcoming 5,000 migrants in a day. In fact, those people would have a much harder time to make their case for staying in the country. And if there's nothing else we take away from this, Jose, it's if this bill goes nowhere, we should at least mark this moment in history to see how far Democrats in the Biden administration have come to the right on this issue.
Yeah, and Morgan, until recently, Eagle Pass was the epicenter of the migrant crisis. Now, what's happening there, and how is what's happening on Capitol Hill impacting things on the ground?
Jose, I think it's created a waiting game for the folks here in Eagle Pass who have watched these numbers rise over the last year, over the last 6 months specifically, and they've seen resources surged here and a lot of debate going on in Washington with no clear solution. So while they do acknowledge at least the text that has been released, no one is, everyone's still holding their breath to see what, if anything, will actually change here. We do know that numbers have dipped in January of this year. That is seasonal in nature, so a lot of that is not attributed to the resources that were surged here. But right now, you're seeing almost every aspect of city life here impacted by the surge, draining local resources, county resources, everyone trying to make ends meet, while the state has taken control of Shelby Park behind me in an ongoing battle with the Biden administration here, Jose. Of course, anything in this bill that would add to staffing, including the Border Patrol agents here, that would be a welcome relief, because keep in mind, Jose, whenever they do have to close the bridge, one of the bridges here in Eagle Pass across to its neighboring Piedras Negras, that cuts down on commerce here for this community, and they see that staffing diverted to the river to handle this influx of migrants. That's dollars out of their pockets. Jose?
Yeah. Sahil, Senator, and you were talking about Senator Menendez's reaction to this, the senator who helped craft the 2013 Gang of Eight bipartisan agreement on immigration reform. In his statement, and I want to quote part of it, he says, "These changes are permanent in nature without any meaningful relief for the 12 million undocumented immigrants in the country, including Dreamers that have lived here for a decade or more. Major chunks of this legislation read like an enforcement wish list from the Trump administration and directly clash with the most basic tenets of our asylum system." So where's, Sahil, in this 300-plus page bill are the people who have been here for decades, many with U.S.-born children, and the Dreamers? What's their fate in this?
There is no provision in this bill that addresses Dreamers or DACA recipients, Jose. That's one of the main sources of Democratic angst in the Progressive Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus, and it's really a dizzying shift from 2013. I was over here covering that Gang of Eight bill. That did have a lot of border security provisions, and it had legalization for the estimated 11 to 12 million people in this country illegally. It passed the Senate with a huge vote of 68 senators, and it died in what was then the Republican-controlled House. Let's also fast forward from there to 2018. 2017, Republican trifecta, Donald Trump is president, a bipartisan immigration deal included money for Donald Trump's wall, it included border security provisions, and it also included legalization for the Dreamers, that, 1 to 2 million people here in this country who have been here for years, many of them brought as children. That was the Democratic demand in all of these previous negotiations for immigration, and it's not happening here. Republicans immediately took this off the table. The fact that the politics of immigration have shifted this far to the right, Democrats are spooked about this issue. It's turned into a net negative for them. The asylum system has become overwhelmed. A lot of Republican governors have sought to use some tactics to try to draw attention to this, including busing migrants to other places in the country. The politics have changed very dramatically, and this bill reflects that. Many Democrats are willing to move on this as public opinion has shifted, which is why this deal is possible. They also very much want the aid to Ukraine. That's another kind of incentive for many Democrats to get on board here. But, Jose, you're absolutely right. This bill does nothing for Dreamers, and that's one of the reasons that some Democrats, some progressives, see this as a bad idea.
Sahil Kapoor, Julia Ainsley, and Morgan Chesky, thank you all so very much.